Welcome everybody to the winemaker dinner of Bokish Vineyards at the Wine Vault and Bistro. This is our 12th year together. I'm Liz Bokish.
And I'm Marcus Bokish, and I do welcome you all to this wonderful event. We're so excited that we've been able to do this for so many years. We can't be there in person, but we can show you what our winery looks like today. So before we go into the tasting room and do a little tour, I want to introduce you to Elise Perry, our phenomenal winemaker.
Hello everyone. All right, follow us into the tasting room.
Welcome again, everybody. Now we are inside of our tasting room that's changed a little bit its configuration ever since COVID-19. We used to have a long bar here. Now we have these separate tasting areas, and it gives us a lot more individual contact with everybody, which is what we really, really enjoy. And we hope that one day you can come up here and participate with that. Now, why is it that we focused on Spanish varietals? The answer is really simple. And that is that my family comes from the Catalonia region of Spain. We come from about a few little tiny towns that are about 2 hours south of Barcelona and very close to wine growing regions that are well known to the Americans like Priorat and not as well known like the Terra Alta. So in our ability to try to bring a part of Spain over to California and keep that connection with our family, we thought it would be wonderful to focus not just on wine grapes, but Spanish wine grapes. Today we're going to be tasting a little bit the Garnacha Blanca.
Yes, this Garnacha Blanca is one of our favorites. I'm going to let Elise explain her amazing winemaking that she does with this variety and some special news about some awards we just won.
Yeah, so Marcus mentioned the Terra Alta region, which is a wine growing region very close to where his family is from. And their main varieties in that region are Garnacha Blanca and Garnacha. And so that's one of the reasons why we make both of those varieties. This Garnacha Blanca is actually, this white wine is different from how we make our other white wines, which are typically stainless steel and really nice, bright, fresh wines. This one tends to have a little bit more texture because what we're doing with it is we're fermenting and aging in some new French oak, really light toast, so you don't get oakiness, you just get more texture to it. And then the rest is just neutral French oak. So just a little bit of a different winemaking style to differentiate it and also to be very similar to what they're doing in the Terra Alta region of Spain. So a couple years ago, there is a competition called the International Grenache Competition, and it's run by an organization in France, and hundreds of wineries enter this every year, but it's wineries from France and Italy and Spain, and nobody from the United States has ever entered. So a couple of years ago, they held the competition in the Terra Alta region of Spain. So we decided to enter the competition. And the funny thing is, when I was entering online, there was no drop-down box for the United States. So I actually had to get in touch with the competition and ask them if we could enter, and they said, of course. Mm-hmm. Well, in that first vintage that we entered, we won a gold medal. And only about 100 wines out of 800 entered won a gold medal that year. Entered it again the following year, and we won another gold medal. Turns out it wasn't a fluke. And we just found out a couple days ago that our 2020 Garnacha Blanca that you will be tasting won another gold medal. We're still the only United States winery to enter, so we're pretty excited about that. And
we're probably in a very small group of people who've won so many golds so consecutively for our Garnacha Blanca.
Absolutely.
Oh, and you're going to just, the aromatics on this wine is just beautiful. It's going to pair so well with the first course. So first of all, I really wanted to thank Chef Greg and Chris for their carnage and the amount of detail they put in. They specifically make this menu to pair with this each individual wine. And so you're going to enjoy this with the salmorejo, which is like a thick gazpacho from the Andalusia region of Spain. And it has like a lemon crab on top, and I think it's just gonna be delicious. I'm jealous that we can't have it with you guys this year in person. And then they also added a watermelon salad with a little bit of heirloom tomatoes and shaved manchego. So my mouth is watering. Enjoy your first course, and then we'll see you in the tank room.
Now we're in the tank room. This is where part of the magic happens. I say part because it actually starts out in the vineyard. That's where the first part of the magic happens. Then we come in here and we ferment some of our whites and all of our reds in this room. And then we will be going down to the barrel room where the other part of the magic happens with most of our red wines. So behind us is one of our many tanks in this tank room. We have 13 tanks in here, actually bigger tanks, and then we have some of these smaller tanks that we'll show you. But this tank behind me is about 4,800 gallons, which is about 2,000 cases of wine. Bokish Vineyards, we actually make about 4,500 cases of wine, but we also do some custom crush, which means we're making wine for some other wineries in the area. And so that totals to an amount of almost 20,000 cases of wine. So there's a lot of grapes coming through here during harvest, which is going to start in just a very short period of time, or in the next few months. And so we ferment, in these tanks, we're fermenting white varieties, so we press those off and the juice goes in there to ferment. And then we have some other tanks throughout the tank room where we ferment our red grapes. So we crush those grapes outside, they get pumped inside into these tanks, and they ferment happily into wine. So,
and we have little tiny small lots too that we do for our Tisoner brand and others, and we use smaller size tanks for that.
We do, yeah. So if you want to pan around there, we've got these small tanks here, and then right over here, these are actually the very first tanks that Marcus and Liz were making their wine in. And so these are about 600 gallons. Yeah, they're kind of tiny compared to everything else in here, but they're actually just perfect for some of our smaller lots.
And we have a hard time letting them go because they
Yes.
were our very first tanks.
Yeah.
And that's tank number 3 right over there. It's actually tank number 7, but it's the third tank we ever bought, right around 1,000 gallons. So.
We've come a long way. So
And by the way, just other thing I wanted to mention is all these tanks have these things on them, Elise. What are these?
So those are thermostats where we control temperature, and which is really important for both actually our whites and our reds. We ferment our whites at a very cool temperature, about 50 to 52 degrees. We want them to ferment pretty slowly so we can get these really nice, beautiful aromatics and flavors. With our red grapes we actually want to keep a little bit cooler because during fermentation, those really heat up pretty hot. They can get up to 90, 95 degrees. And so we use these to set the temperature to cool down the tanks. And you'll see there are these dimples on the tank. That's a glycol jacket. And so there's a liquid called glycol that runs through and will cool down that tank, and it will cool down either the fermenting white juice or the fermenting red grapes.
Yeah.
Pretty important part of the process.
we'll take you outside for a minute so you can actually see where this Garnacha comes from. Right out here is our vineyard, our Terra Alta vineyard. So follow me. Okay, you'll see that behind us is the Terra Alta vineyard, and Marcus is our master farmer, like a master sommelier, master farmer.
Yeah, so all of the grapes, of course, before they come into this wonderful winery, we have to watch them very closely throughout the entire year. Many of you know that right now we're experiencing a drought in California, the second year in a row, and so monitoring water levels, monitoring how much water we give these vines is extremely important to their success. Also, we've had this really cool weather. Right now it's 73 degrees today, so it doesn't require as much water. We have to also make sure that we don't create this over vegetative canopies so that the vines and the fruit are in really good balance and at their maximum quality level before they enter into the winery. We're about 2 months away from the heat of the harvest, and one of the things that Elise and I are going to do next week is we're actually going to go to every single block that will come into this winery, and we're going to assess what needs to be done. Do we need to drop a little bit more fruit? Do we need to pull a little bit more leaves to get more sun exposure to the fruit? Is there a nutritional deficiency issue? Are there insect problems? I mean, it's a gamut of things that we have to really work on in the vineyard, and it's always good when you have your winemaker with you, because she is not going to be looking at necessarily how beautiful the fruit looks, but what's going to create the most intensity and best wines like what you have in your glass.
All right, well, and finally, for your second course, you're going to have it with this beautiful Garnacha that we've been talking about. It is going to go so perfectly with the classic Paella Valenciana that you have in front of you. Again, we're jealous, so we're not eating side by side. And it's going to have some Spanish chorizo and some smoked paprika chicken and piquillo peppers, and it's just going to go so well. So enjoy that second course, and we'll see you in the barrel room.
Welcome to the barrel room. This is the last part of the journey, and this is where the rest of the magic happens in the winemaking process. Behind us, we've got a whole bunch of barrels, so we can fit about 800 barrels in this barrel room. They're not all Bocage vineyards. Some of them are custom crush clients, but a pretty large number are Bocage vineyards. The Tempranillo is typically aged in French and Hungarian oak, and so we've got different coopers that we buy barrels from all over the world. Some in the United States, some in Spain, like this Malgrignan barrel behind me, some in France. And then different types of oak. So there's French oak, American oak, Hungarian oak. And we primarily use French and Hungarian oak here. And the Tempranillo sees quite a bit of French and Hungarian oak, about 30%. But we're not trying to give it any kind of oaky flavor. We're really just trying to complement the wine itself. And so this 2018 Tempranillo was in about 30% new oak. And one of the things that really makes Bocage unique, I think, is the aging process, because we typically are aging these red wines now for about 24 to 30 months. A lot of wineries will age their red wines for 10 months, 12 months, but these varieties that we're making really do lend themselves to a longer aging process. So I'm going to let Marcus speak a little bit about Tempranillo and Bocage vineyards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a lot of pride in the fact that we really are trying to make these wines stylized as they would directly in Spain. Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to create a California rendition of some sort of wine. We're trying to make a Tempranillo that would be almost unrecognizable as being Californian, but it would be more Spanish. And I think we've been very successful at that. Mm-hmm. California really is very similar to Spain in many ways, climatically, etc. And the way in which we make the wines also plays into that. Now, we are the preeminent Spanish winery in the United States, and 75% of all of the budwood and all of the vineyards that are in California now actually originate from the clonal material that we brought in from Spain so that we could start making some great examples of what Tempranillo are, but also Graciano, Garnacha, and all the varieties. We brought all that budwood in so that we could be as close to, as approximate to what Spain can do as possible. And then on top of that, Elise has really done quite a study, quite an effort to try to match oak wood regimes and whatnot so that we can get to where we want to be. And so, not surprisingly, Tempranillo, which is known to age tremendously well, in our cellar ages phenomenally well. And we've been making Tempranillo since 2001, and you can pop a 2001 or 2002, 2003, and you'll see the beautiful ageability of the Tempranillos made from Bocage. So
this 2018 really is tasting phenomenal, and I just want to drink it all right now. But I also know it's going to continue to age so well too. So this is the kind of wine I recommend that you stock up and put some away to taste over the years, because this will continue to age just beautifully. And I think that's probably why Chef Greg and Chris decided to boldly pair this with halibut.
Yes.
Why can't you pair red wines with fish? And if it's done right, like this pan roasted halibut that they're giving you with some savory, like they did some hamon, some tarragon sherry juice, along with some roasted artichokes, you're going to get those savory flavors that are going to pair so well with this Tempranillo. So be bold, try your Tempranillo. It is a food-friendly wine. That's why we love these Spanish varieties.
And that's why we love the Wine Vault and Bistro, because they will go to extents that other wineries or other restaurants just simply won't do. So this kind of pairing is so unique, and we really appreciate their creativity and their carnage.
Yes. All right, so Tempranillo, we will enjoy our last flavors and then move on to our Graciano.
So our Tempranillo, we will typically, not every year is a little bit different, but we will blend it with some Graciano. Graciano, I call my magic bullet in the cellar, because it blends really, really well with a lot of different wines that we make. It adds some color to our Garnacha, which tends to be a little bit lighter color. For the Tempranillo, it actually adds a little bit more acid, so it's a little bit more of a vibrant wine, and it helps it to age a little bit longer as well. But Graciano is really special. It's, I think it happens to be Marcus's favorite variety. Marcus also, he actually was the first person to plant this variety in the United States.
Yeah, I was looking at the literature and saw that some of the best Tempranillos pre-phylloxera, so before 1880s in Spain, had Graciano in it. And I thought, well, what an interesting variety. We need to plant it in California. And at the time, Liz and I were just moved back from Spain. We didn't have any land to plant anything on. And so anyone who planted Tempranillo, I'd say, you know, you should think about Graciano. And they'd say, well, why don't you do it first? And sure enough, we found, while we were working in Spain, a beautiful Graciano vineyard. We collected a wonderful budwood, brought it back to California, planted it, and we were going to utilize it as a blending component into Tempranillo. Now I'm talking like 1999 we planted it. By 2001 we had some fruit. We were going to use it exclusively as a blending component to Tempranillo, and we thought, oh my God, what an amazing standalone variety. So since 2001 we have actually been making a standalone Graciano, and we're the first people ever to have the variety in California, the first people to ever to make a wine out of it. And now we're really pleasantly surprised to see that there's quite a few people who have followed in our footsteps, and there's quite a few Gracianos now to taste in California.
Yeah, it's a really amazing variety. Again, very food friendly. You're going to enjoy it with your fourth course of a smoked chuletón steak, which is the perfect combination with this. And along with some patatas al ajillo and some stewed piperad and grilled scallions with the romesco. So, I mean, this is just picking up on all the different flavors coming out of this wine.
Yeah, this wine is actually a very, I tell people it's a really good barbecue wine if you want bigger meats. But one sort of quick story to tell, knowing that this was Marcus's favorite variety. My first vintage making wine here at Bogus Vineyards in 2014, I had a very interesting experience with the Graciano, because Graciano is a little bit different from some of the other red varieties that we make. It's a late ripener, so it usually comes in October. It's pretty vigorous out in the field. And it's, you know, it's a little bit of a temperamental grape, but it also has really, really big seeds, which took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that. And so my first vintage, putting the fermented, the finished must into the press and pressing it off to put it into barrels, and it was tasting a little bit bitter, and I just thought, oh man, I think I just lost my job. I just messed up Marcus's favorite variety. But it taught me patience, because it's a variety that actually, you know, kind of goes through these weird stages, but ultimately it becomes just this gorgeous, gorgeous wine. So if you like big red wines, this is a really good wine for that. It can also be made in a little bit of a lighter style. It makes a really great rosado. So it's pretty versatile, and we've been able to play around with it in that way.
Yeah, in fact, we have a rosado of Graciano this year that Elise made. She did 3 different rosés for us, because we're doing incredibly well with our rosé program. But it's only in keg, and you only can get it here. So we invite you to come visit us in Lodi and enjoy our tasting room. We have outdoor experiences. We have an indoor reserve tasting that we're going to be beginning. And Lodi's just a great place to come and spend a weekend. So we really hope to see your faces here. Let us know when you come in. Let the staff know that you were at the Wine Vault Bistro dinner, and we really hope to see you guys next year in person for our 13th annual dinner. All 3 of us will hopefully see you there next year.
Absolutely. Salud.
Thank you so much.
Salud.
Salud.